All right, we're back. We're going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Big news, of course. Yeah, you got a great team. They were fantastic in the AHL with the Oklahoma City Barons. If you look at not only just the triple head or the three-headed monster, right? You have Eberle, Nugent Hopkins, and Hall, but you also have Justin Schultz, who was second in points in the A, right behind Jordan Eberle, which is amazing considering that he's only a D-man and 21. That's a little scary, which is great if you're an Oiler fan. A little bit scary for the other teams in the West. But a little shocking here. Sports Illustrated ranked them third behind the New York Rangers and Pittsburgh Penguins. That's ahead of the Vancouver Canucks, who are considered one of the favorites out of all the Canadian teams. The defending Stanley Cup champions, LA Kings. You got several other teams in the mix too that are, you would think, that are better contenders than the Edmonton Oilers, but yet they're ranked third. Is this extremely high, or is this maybe somewhere legit? Because Ryan Whitney said, marijuana is legal in the States, at least some parts, right? Maybe that played a factor into it, but what do you guys say?
I think 3 is way, way high. I mean, I think expectations is that they're going to compete for a playoff spot and either sneak in or just miss it. To rank them ahead of teams like Philadelphia and Boston and Chicago and Minnesota and LA, and I mean the list goes on. That's a tall order, and it's a lot of pressure on them kids who already have a lot of pressure because that team's finished bottom for how long, and now to rank them number 3, I just don't I'd love to meet the guy who figured that out.
Like offensively, yeah, they're going to be an exciting team to watch. Defensively, have they really improved that much from last season, where they were 23rd in the league? Goaltending is going to be another problem for them. But
well, Dubnik's going to have a full season now. He's their main guy, and I'm still not sold on him either. Yeah. But the fact that he's had a lot of shots against him, he's done well. Anything around the 30 to 40 plus range, he's actually played pretty decent hockey. And if you have a goalie like that who could at least play pretty decent, the back end, I think the defense is still a question for sure. But yeah, they got some great forwards. I'm sure they could do it like they did in the 80s. Score 7 goals, allow 6, they'll be fine.
The only thing is with a 48-game schedule, you get off to a good start, you get on a roll, you never know. But at the same time, with a 48-game schedule, you get in a slump. And all of a sudden, a 3-game slump turns into a 6-game slump, and you're out of a race in a hurry.
Well, don't get me wrong. I think they have a real legit shot to make the playoffs. But making the playoffs and being third overall is
it's huge difference.
Okay, so at least let's put it realistically. Third, maybe hyperbole for sure. But 7th, 8th in the West, squeaking into the playoffs, maybe making some noise in there.
Sure.
In a short season, like you said, if they get hot in the right time, which the Oilers have done in the past, that could definitely bode well for them in the future. The NHL is back, of course. That's really exciting for everyone else. But some teams, you mentioned like the Boston Bruins, Philadelphia Flyers, teams that are really, really gunning for the Stanley Cup, especially in this shortened season. Are there any favorites for you or any dark horses that you could see coming out and surprising us this season?
Well, I think there's, the big 4 in the East are with the Rangers, Pittsburgh, Philly, and Boston. That's pretty impressive, and so I think anybody other than them is a dark horse because all 4 of them are so strong. Goaltending right through to the, to have 2 or 3 big names up front scoring, a top-end defenseman. It's that them 4 are pretty solid. So you look at your Carolina, adding Stahl and Semin, and Ottawa with the depth they have. Having the guys on the team that won the Calder Cup with Binghamton the year before. So there's a couple, and then you got your Buffalo if Ryan Miller bounces back or, stuff like that, right? But them 4 are pretty strong in the East.
Yeah, and you look at the West, a lot of people aren't talking about Detroit. I know they're a bit of a reloading right now because they're losing some veteran players who have hung them up, but at the same time, Detroit's always a contender. Chicago should have a bounce-back year. LA Kings, be interesting to see how they recover after winning the Stanley Cup, and maybe the time off is going to help them re-rest and load up. And Vancouver is always going to be a contender, but who's going to be in net's probably the question there too.
And I'll get to our next question. Roberto Luongo, still with the team. They haven't gotten rid of him just yet. I know there are rumblings that he'd be going to Toronto, and you guys were mentioning it before we went on air. But will he stay? Because you're in a shortened season. Do you really want to give him up now where you might not get as much for him? Or do you just say, you know what, let's bygones be bygones and just let him go? Because if he stays there, it's definitely a nice little insurance blanket considering this is Schneider's first time as a starter. He's done well as a backup. He's done well when he's had to come in pressure situations. But the fact that he's now the number one guy, that's an entirely different thing, correct?
Oh, I agree. Man, I'd be hanging on to Luongo for the first 15, 20 games, that's for sure. Because I don't think Schneider's no different than a guy like Dubnyk. He's still got to come in and prove himself as a starter in a pressure-filled city, from the start of the season, right? And I'd be nervous to let Luongo go because you know what you have in him.
Yeah, and if Schneider isn't the man and he falters or gets hurt, who's going to step in if Bobby Lou is gone? So I think if the deal is right, Vancouver will make it, but if the deal is not right, then they'll hold on to him until the fall.
Well, they still have another 10 years on his contract, so he's not going to go anywhere anytime soon unless they deal him. But could this actually backfire on the Canucks in any way, having these goalies, considering all the pressure, all the trade rumors circulating Luongo? It's still going to go with him. It's still going to follow him like a cloud throughout this season for sure in Vancouver with the media. Do you think that's going to be a distraction to any of the Canucks?
Oh, of course it will be. I think Vancouver is very similar to Toronto media-wise. The Canucks are the #1 team in town and the talk of the town all the time. And the media pressure is going to be, if Bobby Lou stays around, it's going to be interesting week after week.
Do you think, though, that maybe there's pressure there regardless? They could trade Bobby Lou or keep Bobby Lou. Sedins could have injuries or be healthy, and there's always pressure in that town. Do you think having Luongo with that team shelters Schneider because everybody talks about Luongo all the time? You trade Luongo, and now it's all about Schneider, and he has a bad game. Oh, and all of a sudden, it puts everything, the emphasis right on Schneider. Whereas if you keep Luongo, everybody talks about Luongo for 48 games.
All right, that's excellent. All right, so I was going to say an excellent point that you make, Jason. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with Over Under next.